Have you ever faced a moment so dark, so painful? A moment where hope seemed lost forever? What if that very pain was a hidden pathway? A winding road leading to your greatest calling? Could your deepest wounds actually shape your destiny? Joseph's life whispers a resounding yes to this question. His story begins not in triumph but in trial. It is a journey through shadows, yet it finds the light. A testament to a plan much larger than our sight. We invite you to discover this incredible transformation. Joseph's path was anything but easy or straightforward. Imagine the sting of betrayal from your own family. Picture the desolation of being sold into slavery. Consider the injustice of false accusations and imprisonment. These were the crushing realities Joseph endured daily. Yet, his spirit, though tested, was never extinguished. His story didn't conclude in despair or defeat. It was merely the preface to an astonishing chapter. A chapter where suffering paved the way for sovereignty. This is the heart of his powerful true narrative. This is the incredible true account of Joseph. Joseph's story is far more than an ancient legend. It is not just a historical account from pages long past. It is a living, breathing narrative with timeless power. Its echoes resonate deeply within the human heart today. Why does it continue to captivate and inspire us? Because it speaks to the core of our own struggles. It offers a beacon of hope in our own dark nights. It reminds us that even in chaos there is a design, a divine pattern that we may not always perceive. Its wisdom remains profoundly relevant for our lives. Within the grand tapestry of the Bible, Joseph's tale shines. It is a crucial thread intricately woven into God's plan. He was the beloved son of Jacob, a patriarch of Israel. His life formed a vital bridge in salvation history. His journey to Egypt was not a random misfortune. It was a divinely orchestrated move, setting the stage, preparing the way for the future of God's chosen people. The survival of a nation would one day rest on his shoulders. His story underscores God's faithfulness across generations. It reveals how individual lives serve a greater divine purpose. The themes in Joseph's narrative are truly universal. They speak to every soul, in every walk of life. We see the raw pain of jealousy and bitter betrayal. We witness the strength found in unwavering faith. We learn the profound liberation of true forgiveness. We marvel at the power of dreams and holding on to hope, resilience in suffering, integrity under pressure, and overarching all, the gentle hand of divine providence. These are not just elements of a story, they are lessons for our own journeys, our own trials. Therefore we delve into Joseph's life for so much more. More than just to learn about a figure from the past. We study his path to find courage for our own. We explore his trials to understand God's mysterious ways. His responses to adversity offer us profound guidance. His ultimate triumph provides us with enduring inspiration. This story challenges us to look beyond our circumstances, to trust that even in the pit, a palace may await. It encourages us to believe in redemption and restoration. Joseph's legacy is a powerful testament to God's unfailing goodness. Joseph entered the world as the 11th son of Jacob. Yet in his father's eyes he was far from ordinary. He was a son of Jacob's old age, a special child, but more than that, he was the firstborn of Rachel. Rachel, the wife Jacob had toiled 14 long years for. She was the love of Jacob's life, his cherished companion. Her son Joseph naturally inherited a unique place, a place of deep, undeniable and visible affection. This paternal preference would set Joseph apart significantly. It would become a source of both blessing and bitter contention. Jacob's love for Joseph was not a quiet, hidden emotion. It was demonstrated openly, perhaps unwisely so. He saw in Joseph the image of his beloved Rachel. He poured out his affection in ways that couldn't be missed. This favoritism was a stark contrast to his feelings for his other sons. Sons born of Leah, or of the handmaidens, Bilhah and Zilpah. While they were his children, Joseph held a singular, elevated status. A status that would soon be symbolized for all to see. This distinction, though born of love, planted early seeds of discord. The family dynamic was forever altered by this focused adoration. To signify this special bond, Jacob bestowed a remarkable gift. He presented Joseph with a coat of many colors. This wasn't just any garment, it was a robe of distinction. Such coats were often associated with royalty or high rank. It was long-sleeved, ornate, and incredibly beautiful, setting him apart. A visible testament to his father's profound and singular favor. Every thread, every hue, spoke of Jacob's special love. It was a constant wearable reminder of Joseph's preferred standing. This garment would become an emblem of his unique destiny, and tragically a catalyst for the simmering resentment around him. His 10 older brothers observed this display with growing bitterness. They saw the coat, and they understood its implications clearly. It was a daily affront, a symbol of their lesser status. Their father's partiality was a wound that festered within them. They perceived Joseph not just as favored, but as elevated above them. This perception fueled a deep and dangerous animosity. Their hearts began to fill with envy and unspoken anger. They could not bring themselves to speak a kind word to him. The beautiful coat, meant as an expression of love, ignited hatred. A hatred that would soon find even more fuel for its flames. As if the coat were not enough to stir their ire, Joseph, still young and perhaps naive, began to have vivid dreams. These were not fleeting nighttime fancies, easily dismissed. They were powerful, symbolic visions that seemed to carry weight. He felt compelled to share these dreams with his family. Perhaps he shared them with youthful innocence, or perhaps with pride. He did not foresee the explosive impact they would have. These dreams, sent from a source beyond his understanding, spoke of authority. They painted a future that his brothers found utterly intolerable, a future where they would be subservient to their younger sibling. The first dream Joseph recounted was set in the fields. He described how he and his brothers were binding sheaves of grain. Suddenly Joseph's sheaf arose and stood upright, tall and firm. Then, remarkably, his brothers' sheaves gathered all around. They circled his central sheaf and bowed down low in homage. The symbolism was stark, unmistakable, and deeply offensive. It depicted him in a position of clear superiority. His brothers, hard-working and older, were to submit to him. They listened, their faces hardening with disbelief and indignation. This dreamer, as they began to call him, was testing their limits. Not long after, Joseph shared yet another, even grander vision. This time, the dream painted a celestial scene of obeisance. He saw the sun, the moon, and 11 stars in the heavens, and all of them, these great celestial bodies, were bowing down to him. The implication was even more audacious than the first dream. Not only his brothers, the 11 stars, but also his father and mother. Represented by the sun and moon, they too would acknowledge his supremacy. This went far beyond sibling rivalry. It touched the very hierarchy of the family. It suggested a reversal of the natural order, an unthinkable prospect. The audacity of such a vision left them seething with resentment. The reaction to these dreams was immediate and intensely negative. His brother's simmering dislike now boiled over into open contempt. "Do you intend to reign over us?" they sneered in derision. "Will you actually rule us with such arrogance?" They hated him all the more for his dreams and his words. Even Jacob, his loving father, rebuked him for this second dream. "What is this dream you have had?" Jacob questioned sharply. "Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come to bow down to the ground before you?" Yet the Bible tells us that while Jacob rebuked Joseph, he kept the matter in mind. His brothers, however, nursed their jealousy, letting it grow ever stronger. The sharing of these dreams marked a crucial turning point. What was once jealousy over a coat now deepened significantly. It transformed into a potent cocktail of envy, anger, and fear. His brothers saw Joseph not just as favored, but as a threat to their own standing, their own future, their own pride. They began to perceive him as unbearably arrogant and conceited. His youthful pronouncements, unfiltered by wisdom, felt like deliberate provocations. Every interaction became strained, every word scrutinized for hidden meaning. The family fabric, already weakened, was tearing under the strain. A storm of animosity was gathering, dark and ominous. They couldn't stand the sight of him, this master of dreams. His very presence became a constant irritation to them. They whispered amongst themselves, their resentment festering like a wound. How could their father indulge this boy so thoroughly? How could Joseph speak of such lofty, self-aggrandizing visions? They felt dismissed, overshadowed, and disrespected by their younger brother. The dreams confirmed their worst fears about Joseph's ambitions. In their eyes, he was not just a dreamer, but a schemer. One who sought to elevate himself at their expense entirely. This bitter interpretation fueled their collective desire for retribution. The atmosphere in Jacob's household grew increasingly toxic. The brothers' hatred for Joseph was no longer a secret. It was a palpable force, shaping their interactions daily. They avoided him when possible, and when not, their words were cold. They mocked him behind his back, and likely to his face. "Here comes that dreamer," they would say with biting sarcasm. Their inability to accept his God-given visions blinded them. They failed to see any possibility beyond their own wounded pride. The seeds of resentment so carefully sown and nurtured were taking root. They were growing into a dark and twisted plant of malice. This escalating tension could not continue indefinitely without consequence. The brothers' collective animosity reached a dangerous boiling point. They interpreted Joseph's divine revelations as personal insults. His youthful sharing was twisted into deliberate acts of hubris. They saw him as a spoiled, arrogant youth who needed to be silenced, a youth who needed to be brought down from his high perch. The favored son, with his colorful coat and grand dreams, was isolated. He was surrounded by a brotherhood united in their disdain for him, and so, they watched, they waited, their hearts hardening. One day the opportunity would arise and they would indeed snap. One day, Jacob called for his beloved son Joseph. He had a simple task, a father's gentle request. "Your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem," he said. "Go and see if all is well with them and with the flocks. Then bring word back to me," Jacob instructed kindly. Joseph, ever obedient, replied, "Very well, I will go." He set out from the valley of Hebron, a journey of concern. He did not know the darkness that awaited him. His heart, pure and unsuspecting, anticipated a routine report. Little did he realize this path led to unimaginable treachery. Joseph traveled onward seeking his shepherd brothers. He reached Shechem, but they were not to be found there. A man discovered him wandering, a lone figure in the fields. "What are you looking for?" the stranger kindly inquired. "I am looking for my brothers," Joseph explained his quest. "Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" the man replied. "They have moved on from here, my son. I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph pressed on, his destination now clear. Towards Dothan he walked, towards a fate already being woven. From a distance, his brothers saw a familiar figure approaching. The vibrant colors of his special coat stood out against the land. There was no mistaking him. It was Joseph, their father's favorite. Instantly the sight of him reignited their bitter resentment. The old jealousies, the anger over his dreams, all surged anew. "Here comes the dreamer," one of them sneered with contempt. Their hearts, already hardened, now turned to stone-cold malice. They began to conspire against him, their words dark and venomous. This was their chance, far from their father's watchful eyes. The opportunity they had perhaps longed for was now at hand. "Come now," they plotted amongst themselves, their faces grim. "Let us kill him, and throw him into one of these cisterns. We can say that a ferocious animal devoured him," they schemed. "Then we will see what comes of all his lofty dreams." Their words were filled with a chilling, murderous intent. The hatred they had nursed for so long was now bearing its fruit. They saw not a brother, but an obstacle, an arrogant upstart. Their shared animosity bonded them in this wicked plan. The air grew thick with their sinister, whispered agreement. The stage was set for a betrayal of the deepest kind. Reuben, the eldest brother, heard their murderous whispers. A flicker of conscience or perhaps fear stirred within him. He could not fully condone such a brutal final act. He sought to deliver Joseph from their bloodthirsty hands. "Let us not take his life," Reuben urged them strongly. "Shed no blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness. But do not lay a hand on him yourselves," he pleaded. Reuben's secret intention was to rescue Joseph later. He hoped to return alone and restore him to their father. His intervention offered a sliver of hope, however faint. So when Joseph finally reached his expectant brothers, they seized him. There were no greetings, no words of welcome, only rough hands. They tore from him his most treasured possession, his identity, the coat of many colors, the symbol of his father's love, that beautiful robe now a spoil in their hateful grasp. They stripped it from him, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. His pleas, his confusion likely fell on deaf ears. Their faces were masks of cruelty, their hearts unmoved. Then, with callous force, they took him and cast him down, into an empty cistern, a dry, desolate pit in the earth. Joseph cried out from the depths of that dark, lonely hole. His voice would have echoed, filled with terror and disbelief. How could his own brothers commit such a cruel act, the ones he had journeyed so far to check on? The pit was cold, and fear must have gripped his young heart. Above him, he could perhaps hear their distant, uncaring voices. They had turned their backs on his suffering, his desperate pleas. He was alone, betrayed, and utterly helpless in the darkness. His dreams of sheaves and stars must have seemed a bitter mockery now. Hope itself seemed to be swallowed by the suffocating gloom, and as Joseph languished in the pit, his brothers sat down. Callously, indifferently, they began to eat their meal nearby. The sounds of their conversation, their eating, would have drifted down, a stark, cruel contrast to his own hunger, thirst, and terror. They showed no remorse, no pity for the brother they had condemned. Their act of betrayal was complete, or so they thought. The coat lay nearby, a silent testament to their deed. They had rid themselves of the dreamer and his disturbing visions. But their crime was not yet fully finished. Another choice loomed. As they were eating, the brothers looked up and saw a caravan. A company of Ishmaelite traders was approaching from Gilead. Their camels were laden with spices, balm, and myrrh. They were on their way, journeying down to distant Egypt. Suddenly, Judah, one of the brothers, had a new idea. A thought that was perhaps less bloody, but no less cruel. He saw an opportunity in the arrival of these merchants, a way to profit from their brother and absolve themselves of direct murder. His mind calculated quickly, seeing a path to their desired end. This chance encounter would divert Joseph's path dramatically. Judah spoke to his brothers, his voice pragmatic and cold. "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to these Ishmaelites instead," he proposed. "Let us not lay our hands on him, after all he is our brother." "He is our own flesh and blood," Judah reasoned, strangely. His brothers listened, and his words found their agreement. It seemed a cleaner way, a way to be rid of Joseph permanently. They could gain money and avoid the stain of fratricide. So they pulled Joseph up from the dark, confining cistern. Hope might have flickered briefly, only to be extinguished again. For 20 pieces of silver they completed the horrific transaction, the price of a slave, the value they placed on their brother's life. Joseph was handed over to the Ishmaelite traders, bound and afraid. He was now truly alone, torn from his family, his land, his freedom. His brothers watched as the caravan moved away, taking him with them. They had their silver, and Joseph was gone from their sight. They had silenced the dreamer, or so they believed in that moment. But God's plan, unseen by them, was already in motion. Joseph's cries and pleas were ignored as he began his journey. A journey into the unknown, into the heart of slavery in Egypt. Then, the brothers took Joseph's ornate and beautiful coat. They slaughtered a goat, a young male from their flocks. And with deliberate, cold calculation, they dipped the coat in its blood. They stained the vibrant colors with the crimson of deceit. The garment, once a symbol of love, now became a tool of a lie. They carried this fabricated evidence back to their aging father. "We found this," they said, their faces feigning concern. "Examine it, please, and see whether it is your son's coat or not." Their words were carefully chosen, designed to inflict maximum pain. The final act of their betrayal was about to unfold before Jacob. Place of servitude, a tiny seed of hope remained. God had not abandoned him, though circumstances screamed otherwise. His silent prayers, his unwavering faith were his only companions. A new chapter, fraught with challenges, was beginning for young Joseph. Joseph applied himself wholeheartedly to every task assigned. He did not labor with resentment, but with a spirit of service. His work was meticulous, his attitude respectful and earnest. He learned quickly, adapting to the demands of Potiphar's household. Whether in the house or in the field, he gave his very best. His natural abilities, sharpened by adversity, began to shine brightly. He demonstrated responsibility far exceeding his enslaved status. His competence and unwavering honesty became his hallmarks. Potiphar saw that the Lord made all he did to prosper. This divine favor was not just for Joseph but extended outwards. The entire household of the Egyptian began to flourish. Potiphar's estate experienced an unprecedented season of blessing. His fields yielded bountiful harvests, his livestock multiplied, his affairs ran smoothly, efficiently, under Joseph's influence. The Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. This prosperity was a tangible outcome of God's presence. It was clear that Joseph was no ordinary slave. He was a conduit, a channel for divine favor and abundance in that place. Potiphar, a shrewd man, understood the source of this good fortune. He recognized the value of this young Hebrew in his service. Trust in Joseph grew steadily within Potiphar's heart. He saw the integrity, the skill, the divine blessing. Slowly, more and more responsibility was placed on Joseph's shoulders. Potiphar promoted him from a common slave to a position of authority. Eventually, he made Joseph the overseer of his entire house. All that he owned, he put into Joseph's capable hands. Potiphar entrusted him with every aspect of his personal affairs. He concerned himself with nothing except the food he ate. Such was his complete confidence in Joseph's management. Joseph had risen from the depths of slavery to a place of honor. In this elevated position, Joseph managed Potiphar's estate. He did so with wisdom, fairness, and impeccable honesty. He did not abuse his power or seek personal gain improperly. His character remained steadfast, uncorrupted by his new authority. He was a testament to faithfulness in trying circumstances. The Lord was with him, guiding his decisions, blessing his efforts. Joseph was handsome in form and appearance, a striking young man. His outward appeal matched his inner strength and integrity. He was a living example of God's grace in an unlikely place. Potiphar's wife soon cast her eyes upon Joseph. She saw his handsome features, his capable demeanor, his youth. He was no longer just another slave in the household. He was the trusted manager, moving with authority and grace. Her gaze, however, was not one of innocent admiration. It was filled with lustful desire, a dangerous infatuation. She began to covet what was not hers, to plot in secret. Joseph, focused on his duties, was unaware of the growing peril. His very attractiveness and competence became a snare. A new trial, a test of his deepest convictions, was brewing. Day after day, she relentlessly pursued her illicit desires. "Lie with me," she would command, her voice insistent. Her advances were bold, persistent, and increasingly brazen. Joseph found himself in an incredibly difficult, precarious position. He was a slave, and she was the master's powerful wife. To refuse her could bring dire, unimaginable consequences. To yield would mean betraying his God and his master. The pressure was immense, a daily torment for his righteous soul. He had to navigate this treacherous situation with great care. His integrity was on the line, his future hanging in the balance. But Joseph stood firm, his resolve unwavering and strong. He refused her advances each and every time she approached. "Look," he explained to her with earnest patience, "my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. He has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do this great wickedness? How could I sin against God who has shown me such favor?" His loyalty to Potiphar was absolute, his fear of God profound. These were the anchors that held him steady in the storm. He chose righteousness over momentary safety or sinful pleasure. His consistent refusal only seemed to inflame her desire. She became more desperate, her attempts more aggressive. Joseph wisely tried to avoid her presence as much as possible. He would not even be near her to avoid any temptation. He understood the danger she posed to his integrity and his life. This daily battle of wills tested his character to its limits. He demonstrated incredible strength and moral fortitude. He was determined to remain pure, to honor his commitments. But Potiphar's wife was not accustomed to being denied. Her spurned advances would soon turn into vengeful fury. One day, an opportunity arose that she could not resist. Joseph went into the house to attend to his daily duties. None of the other household servants were inside at that moment. She saw her chance, her desperation reaching its peak. She caught him by his garment, her grip firm and demanding. "Lie with me," she insisted, her voice filled with urgency. But Joseph, true to his character, would not yield. He valued his purity and his relationship with God above all. He left his garment in her hand, a piece of damning evidence. and he fled from her presence, escaping out of the house. When she saw that he had left his garment and fled, her frustrated desire quickly curdled into bitter, vengeful rage. She knew she had been utterly rejected, her pride wounded. She immediately began to concoct a wicked, deceitful story. She called out to the men of her household, feigning distress. "Look!" she cried, holding up Joseph's garment as false proof. "This Hebrew slave was brought to us to mock and insult us. He came in here to lie with me, but I screamed loudly." Her words were a malicious distortion of the actual truth. She painted herself as the victim, Joseph as the aggressor. Then she carefully laid Joseph's garment beside her. She waited until her husband Potiphar returned home. With calculated tears and false indignation, she repeated her lie. She told him the same fabricated story she told the servants. "That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to mock me, but as soon as I screamed for help he left his cloak. He left it beside me and ran out of the house." Her performance was convincing, her accusations damning. She twisted Joseph's integrity into an act of vile aggression. Her lies sealed his fate, plunging him into darkness once more. When Potiphar heard his wife's accusatory words, he burned with anger. He did not question her account, he believed her deception. His trust in Joseph, so carefully built, shattered in an instant. The evidence of the garment seemed to confirm her story. Blinded by rage and betrayal, he ordered Joseph's arrest. The favored overseer was now a condemned criminal in his eyes. Joseph was taken away and thrown into the royal prison, the very place where the king's prisoners were confined. Once again, he was betrayed, unjustly accused, and imprisoned. From the heights of Potiphar's trust, Joseph plunged once more. He was cast into the king's prison, a place of despair. Darkness enveloped him, cold stone his unwelcome companion, innocent yet condemned by a lie, by vindictive wrath. The injustice must have stung with an agonizing burn. First his brothers, now his master's wife, betrayal his constant shadow. Each act of faithfulness seemed to lead to deeper suffering. The dreams of his youth, of sun and moon bowing low, felt distant. They seemed like mocking echoes in the silence of his cell, yet even here a flicker of divine purpose refused to die. The prison was a grim reality, a stark contrast to his hopes. Gone was the authority he wielded in Potiphar's house. Gone was the respect he had earned through diligent service. Now, he was merely a number, one among many forgotten souls. The air was heavy with the weight of confinement and regret. The sounds were of clanging gates and the murmurs of the condemned. It would have been easy to surrender to bitterness, to abandon faith, to question the God who had seemingly allowed this to happen. But Joseph's spirit, though tested, was forged in a divine fire. He carried a resilience that earthly prisons could not easily crush. What thoughts consumed him in those initial days of confinement? Did he replay the events, the false accusation, the swift judgment? Did he cry out to God, questioning the silence, the apparent absence? The Bible tells us little of his inner turmoil in that moment. But it consistently affirms one crucial truth: the Lord was with Joseph. This was not a mere platitude, but a profound spiritual reality. Even in the dungeon, surrounded by criminals and despair, he was not truly alone. God's presence was an anchor, unseen yet powerfully felt. It was the bedrock upon which his unwavering faith would stand. This divine companionship would once again make all the difference. Joseph did not let the darkness of the prison extinguish his inner light. He chose not to marinate in self-pity or righteous anger. Instead, he clung to the character of the God he knew, a God of justice, a God of mercy, a God of sovereign plans. His faith was not dependent on favorable circumstances or outcomes. It was rooted in a deep, personal relationship with the Almighty. This period of intense trial would refine him, prepare him further. He was being shaped in the crucible of suffering for a purpose far grander than he could currently comprehend. His spirit, though imprisoned, remained remarkably, divinely unbroken. God was using even this dark chapter to display his power through Joseph. One day, the routine of prison life was notably disturbed. Two prominent officials from Pharaoh's own court were incarcerated. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and his chief baker had offended their king. They were thrown into the same prison where Joseph was confined. They found themselves under Joseph's charge, within his oversight. These were men of high standing, now fallen from grace. Their arrival would unknowingly set in motion the next phase, the next critical step in God's unfolding plan for Joseph. He could not have known the significance of these new inmates, but he would interact with them with his usual compassion. After some time, both the cupbearer and the baker had dreams. Each man dreamed his dream on the same perplexing night, and each dream had its own distinct, troubling interpretation. The next morning Joseph came to them and saw their distress. Their faces were downcast, heavy with the weight of their visions. "Why do you look so sad today?" Joseph asked with concern. He noticed their dejection and reached out with genuine empathy. They replied, "We have had dreams, but there is no one to interpret them." In their despair, they saw no hope for understanding their visions. They were unaware that an interpreter was right there among them. Joseph's response was immediate, pointing beyond himself to God. "Do not interpretations belong to God?" he declared with quiet confidence. "Tell me your dreams, please," he invited them gently. He did not claim any special power of his own in this matter. He acknowledged the divine source of all true understanding. The cupbearer, emboldened by Joseph's demeanor, shared his dream first. He dreamt of a vine with 3 branches that budded and bore ripe grapes. He squeezed the grapes into Pharaoh's cup and placed it in Pharaoh's hand. Joseph listened carefully, and God gave him the interpretation. "In 3 days," Joseph said, "Pharaoh will restore you to your position." Then the baker, seeing the favorable interpretation, shared his dream. He dreamt of 3 cake baskets on his head, with birds eating from them. Joseph, with sorrow, delivered the more somber interpretation. "In 3 days," Joseph explained, "Pharaoh will lift off your head. He will hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh." And it happened exactly as Joseph had foretold for both men. The cupbearer was restored to his post, the baker was executed. Before the cupbearer's release, Joseph made a heartfelt plea. "Only remember me when it is well with you," he asked. "Show kindness to me and mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this house." He explained his unjust imprisonment, his longing for freedom. But alas, the cupbearer, once restored to favor, forgot Joseph. 2 more full years Joseph remained unjustly in that dark prison. 2 long years had passed since the cupbearer's restoration. Joseph remained in the dungeon, his plea seemingly forgotten. But God's timing, though often mysterious, is always perfect. Suddenly, the mighty Pharaoh, ruler of all Egypt, had dreams. Not just 1, but 2 deeply disturbing visions in a single night. He dreamt of 7 sleek, fat cows emerging from the Nile River. They grazed peacefully among the reeds, symbols of abundance. Then 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, rose after them. These starving creatures devoured the healthy, fat cows completely, yet they remained just as emaciated as before their horrid meal. Pharaoh awoke, his spirit deeply troubled by the vivid imagery. He fell asleep again, only for a second equally unsettling dream. He saw 7 heads of grain, healthy and full, growing on one stalk. They promised a bountiful harvest, a vision of prosperity. But then, 7 other heads of grain sprouted after them. These were thin, scorched by the harsh east wind, utterly blighted. And the thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 full, healthy heads. The king awoke once more, the weight of these visions pressing heavily. They were no ordinary dreams, they felt like omens, dark warnings. A sense of foreboding settled over the powerful ruler of Egypt. The next morning Pharaoh's mind was still in turmoil. The haunting images of the cows and grain replayed relentlessly. He summoned all the magicians of Egypt, the so-called wise men. He called for every charmer, every diviner, every interpreter in his realm. These were the men renowned for their access to hidden knowledge. They were expected to unravel mysteries, to discern the future. Pharaoh recounted his 2 perplexing dreams in vivid detail. He laid before them the enigma that had stolen his peace. He sought answers, reassurance, some understanding of these omens. But a profound silence fell upon the assembled wise men. Despite their acclaimed wisdom and their mystical arts, they were stumped. Not one of them could offer Pharaoh a credible interpretation. Their incantations failed, their scrolls offered no enlightenment. The dreams were beyond their comprehension, beyond their skill. Pharaoh's agitation grew with each failed attempt, each baffled expression. His frustration mounted. The most powerful man on earth felt helpless. The kingdom's greatest minds were utterly confounded by his visions. Egypt, a land of mystics and ancient knowledge, had no answer. The royal court buzzed with anxiety, mirroring their king's unease. A pall of uncertainty hung heavy over the mighty Egyptian empire. It was in this moment of national crisis, of royal despair, that the chief cupbearer standing near Pharaoh had a sudden memory. A jolt, like lightning, pierced through his years of forgetfulness. "Today I remember my offenses," he declared to the troubled Pharaoh. He recounted his own imprisonment, his dream, and the baker's. He spoke of a young Hebrew man, a servant of the captain of the guard, a fellow prisoner who had interpreted their dreams with perfect accuracy. "He interpreted them for us," the cupbearer explained with urgency. "Just as he interpreted for us, so it came to pass." The cupbearer confessed his failure to remember Joseph sooner. Pharaoh, desperate for any solution, seized upon this glimmer of hope. "Send for him!" the king commanded without a moment's hesitation. So they hastily brought Joseph from the dark, oppressive dungeon. He had languished there, forgotten by man but not by God. They quickly shaved him, a customary act of respect before royalty. They provided him with fresh, clean garments, fit for Pharaoh's presence. The grime of the prison was washed away, his appearance transformed. He was unceremoniously rushed from the depths of confinement. He stood now blinking in the light before the most powerful ruler. The fate of a nation unknowingly rested on his next words. Pharaoh looked upon this young Hebrew, his last hope. "I have had a dream," the king began, his voice heavy with concern, "and there is no one who can interpret it for me. But I have heard it said of you," Pharaoh continued, "that when you hear a dream you can interpret it." It was a statement of expectation, a plea for understanding. Joseph's response was immediate, humble, yet filled with divine confidence. "It is not in me," Joseph declared clearly, deflecting any personal glory. "God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer," he assured the king. He pointed away from himself to the true source of wisdom. His quiet faith stood in stark contrast to the failed magicians. Pharaoh then recounted his two troubling dreams to Joseph. He described the 7 fat cows devoured by the 7 gaunt ones. He detailed the 7 full heads of grain swallowed by the 7 blighted ones. Joseph listened intently, his mind open to divine revelation. God, who had given the dreams, now gave the interpretation. "The dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same," Joseph stated. "God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. The dreams are one," Joseph reiterated with clarity. "The 7 lean and ugly cows and the 7 empty heads of grain mean 7 years of devastating famine." The mystery was unveiled, the divine message made plain. Having unveiled the meaning, Joseph did not stop there. "Let Pharaoh now look for a discerning and wise man," Joseph advised, "and set him over the land of Egypt to manage this crisis. Let Pharaoh appoint overseers and take 1/5 of the produce. Take this portion during the 7 plentiful years ahead. Let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming, and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh in the cities. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine." Pharaoh and all his officials were deeply impressed by this plan. "Can we find anyone like this man?" he declared in awe, "a man in whom is the very Spirit of God?" "Since God has shown you all this," the king announced, "you shall be over my house and all my people shall order themselves. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you." Pharaoh declared, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." Pharaoh then removed his signet ring from his own hand. He placed it upon Joseph's finger, a symbol of delegated authority. Thus Joseph was made ruler over all the land of Egypt. The 7 years of plenty had passed, just as Joseph foretold. Egypt's granaries bulged with stored grain, a testament to wise foresight. Then the devastating famine began to grip the lands far and wide. Its cruel fingers reached into Canaan, where Jacob and his family dwelt. Jacob, hearing that there was grain available for purchase in Egypt, gathered his sons, his heart heavy with the plight of his people. "Go down to Egypt," Jacob instructed his 10 older sons. "Buy grain for us there, so that we may live and not die." But Benjamin, Joseph's younger brother, Rachel's only other son, Jacob kept him safely at home, his heart still raw with past loss. The 10 brothers, unaware of the destiny awaiting them, set out. Their path led them to the very land where their brother now ruled. When they arrived in Egypt, they sought out the governor. They were ushered into the presence of this mighty Egyptian ruler. They did not recognize the face of their long-lost brother Joseph. They bowed low before him, their faces to the ground in deep respect. Joseph, however, recognized them instantly, his heart surely lurching, yet he remained composed, his face an inscrutable Egyptian mask. "You are spies!" Joseph accused them sharply, his voice stern. "You have come to see where our land is unprotected and vulnerable." His brothers were struck with terror, their faces paling instantly. "No, my lord," they pleaded. "Your servants have come only to buy food. We are all sons of one man in Canaan. We are honest men." They spoke of their family, their aged father, and a younger brother. "And one brother," they said, "is no more," referring to Joseph himself. Joseph listened, his resolve to test them hardening further. "This is how I will test you," he declared with authority. "By the life of Pharaoh, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you to get him. The rest will be kept in prison." He then put them all in custody for 3 long days. On the 3rd day, Joseph offered them a modified proposal. "Do this, and you will live. For I fear God," he told them. "If you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison. The rest of you may go and take grain back for your starving households. But you must bring your youngest brother back to me here." Simeon was chosen and bound before their very eyes. They journeyed back to Canaan, their hearts heavy with grief and fear. When Joseph saw Benjamin among them, his heart stirred deeply. He instructed his steward to bring the men to his own house. The brothers were terrified, fearing this was a trap for punishment. At Joseph's house they were treated with unexpected hospitality. Joseph entered, and they presented their gifts, bowing low again. He inquired about their father. "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke? Is he still alive?" His voice, though controlled, held a tremor of deep emotion. The sight of his full brother Benjamin almost overwhelmed him. During the feast, Joseph showed special favor to Benjamin. His portion was 5 times more than any of the others. Joseph ordered his silver cup to be hidden in Benjamin's sack. As they departed, his steward pursued them, accusing them of theft. The cup was found, and the brothers, in utter despair, tore their clothes. They returned to the city, brought before Joseph once more. Judah stepped forward, his voice breaking with anguish and love. He offered himself as a slave in Benjamin's place to spare his father. Joseph could no longer control the storm of emotions within him. He ordered all his attendants to leave the room immediately, and then, alone with his brothers, he broke down and wept aloud. Through his tears, he finally spoke the words they never expected. Joseph's story is a breathtaking panorama of human experience. From the depths of a desolate pit, he was thrust into servitude. Then, from the perceived security of Potiphar's house, into a dark prison. False accusations and bitter betrayals marked his painful descent, yet through every shadowed valley one truth remained constant. God was with Joseph, meticulously guiding his every step. His presence was the unseen thread in a complex design. The palace was not an accident, but a divine appointment. Consider the profound faith Joseph exhibited in the darkest nights. When hope seemed a distant memory, his trust did not waver. He clung to the character of his God, unseen yet ever near. Through years of silence, through seasons of profound injustice, his spirit, though tested by fire, refused to be consumed by despair. He understood, perhaps implicitly, that God was working behind the scenes, weaving a tapestry far too intricate for human eyes to fully perceive. His steadfastness was not born of ignorance but of deep conviction, a quiet assurance that his life had meaning beyond the present pain. This enduring faith became the bedrock of his ultimate triumph. Joseph's life vividly illustrates the awesome power of divine sovereignty, events that appeared random, even cruelly orchestrated by human malice. Beyond divine sovereignty, Joseph's story shines with forgiveness. Imagine the depth of hurt, the years of stolen life he endured. The betrayal by his own flesh and blood cut the deepest. Yet, when confronted with his penitent brothers, he chose grace. He did not harbor bitterness or seek vengeful retribution. Instead, he offered tears of release and words of profound comfort. This remarkable act of forgiveness was not a sign of weakness. It was a testament to a heart healed and transformed by God. Forgiveness unlocked the door to true restoration and family healing. It paved the way for a future unburdened by past wrongs. Joseph's immense suffering was never meaningless, never simply endured. It was intricately woven into the fabric of his divine purpose. His trials were the very training ground for his future role. The pit taught him dependence. Slavery taught him administration. Prison refined his character and his gift of interpretation. God used every painful experience to prepare him meticulously. He was being shaped to save nations from devastating famine. His journey demonstrates that our deepest pain can lead to our greatest calling, not in spite of our suffering but often because of it. God can transform our wounds into sources of widespread blessing.